It was supposed to be a perfect day. I'd spent weeks planning it. Balloons, decorations, the exact shade of blue my son liked most. I even custom-ordered a cake with his favorite dinosaur on top, the one he draws over and over again in his sketchbook like it's his imaginary friend. My wife, Emma, was in charge of the goodie bags, and I handled the playlist because I knew all the songs that made him dance around the kitchen in his Spider-Man pajamas. We were doing it at my parents' house, like we always did. That was the plan. That's how it had always been. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, it all went down at Mom and Dad's place. That house was supposed to mean family. But this time, something snapped. I'm Zane. I'm 34, husband, dad of 2. Noah's 7, Ellie's 4. I'm not one for drama. I've always been the let-it-go kind of guy. Bite my tongue, laugh it off, make peace, not war. You know the type. It's how I was raised. I grew up in a house where keeping the peace meant swallowing your pride and not asking too many questions. Especially when it came to my younger sister, Maddie. Maddie was the golden child. Still is, honestly. She's 31 now, a single mom of 2 adorable kids, and she somehow turned that into a full-time identity that grants her immunity from consequences. Growing up, she could do no wrong. Wrecked the car at 17? She was under so much stress. Blew all her student loan money on a spontaneous trip to Ibiza? She needed to find herself. Meanwhile, I once got grounded for bringing home a B in calculus. The double standard wasn't new, but I guess I thought that once we were adults, things would even out. Spoiler alert, they didn't. I should have seen it coming, honestly. There had been warning signs. Last Christmas, my mom forgot to put Noah's name on the gift tags and handed him a generic board game that clearly came from the dollar store bin. Meanwhile, Maddie's kids got a Nintendo Switch and personalized stockings. At Easter, Noah asked why the Easter Bunny skipped Grandma's house and only left baskets for his cousins. I brushed it off, said maybe the bunny got tired and missed a stop. Emma gave me that look, the you know what this is look, but I wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet. This year, for Noah's birthday, I wanted it to be special. We were already feeling tight on space at our place, so hosting it at my parents' house made sense. Bigger yard, more room to run around, familiar territory. I called ahead, asked if we could do the party there, and Mom said of course. We'd love to host, she said. Family is everything. Her words. I even offered to bring everything, food, drinks, decorations, the whole deal. I wasn't asking for anything except the space and maybe a helping hand. The morning of the party, Noah was up at 6 a.m. He ran into our room and jumped on the bed, grinning from ear to ear. He was already wearing the dinosaur t-shirt we got him, wouldn't take it off since Tuesday. I helped him pack his new toy cars, the ones he wanted to show his cousins. I bet Grandma made pancakes, he said on the way over, practically vibrating in the back seat. My heart ached in the best way. That innocent, hopeful joy. I didn't know it could be cracked in an instant. But it can. We pulled into the driveway a little early. Emma had the cake on her lap, and Ellie was humming the happy birthday song off key. I remember feeling good. Like, really good. That warm kind of happiness that bubbles up when you see your kid genuinely excited. That was the last time I felt it that day. When we stepped inside, the first thing I noticed was the color scheme. Pink and purple streamers, a huge glittery happy birthday sign with Maddie's daughter's name on it. At first, I thought I was seeing things. Maybe they were recycling decorations from a past party? But then the balloons came bouncing down the hallway, also pink and purple, with Princess printed on them. Noah froze beside me, looking around, confused. His grip tightened on my hand. And then Maddie walked in, smiling like this was the best surprise ever. Oh good, you're here early. We figured we'd just do a little combo celebration since everyone's already coming. 2 birds, 1 stone, right? I didn't know what to say. I blinked at her, stunned. Combo celebration? Her daughter's birthday was 3 weeks ago. Noah's was today. Today. Before I could speak, my mom swooped in from the kitchen carrying 2 gift bags, both covered in sparkly wrapping paper. Look who's here, she said in that sugary voice she uses when she's putting on a show. Hi, sweetie. She bent down and handed the bags to Maddie's kids. Gifts, big ones by the look of them. One of the kids squealed and tore into it on the spot. A Barbie dream house. My heart dropped. Noah just stood there, holding the toy cars we brought. My mom looked right at him. Didn't say a word. No hug. No happy birthday. Not even a smile. It was like he wasn't even there. Mom, I said, forcing a smile, trying not to cause a scene. Did you forget today's Noah's birthday? She blinked, like I'd asked her if she wanted tea or coffee. Of course not, she said. But Maddie had such a hard week with work and the kids. We thought it'd be nice to let her little ones feel special too. They don't get as much attention lately. You know how it is. I didn't. I really didn't. Because I couldn't wrap my head around how you host a party for one kid and ignore the one whose birthday it actually is. I looked at Emma, who was clutching the cake box like it might shatter. Her mouth was set in a tight line, and I could see the fire behind her eyes. Noah was quiet. Too quiet. He wasn't looking at anyone now, just staring down at his feet like maybe if he stood still enough, he'd disappear. I knelt down next to him and said, "Hey, bud. You okay?" He nodded, barely. "Do I still get to blow out the candles?" he whispered. That's when I knew something was really, really wrong. I stood up and looked around the room. No decorations for him. No presents. No candles. No chairs set up for a party. This wasn't a combo celebration. It was Maddie's party. Again, as usual. And my son, on his 7th birthday, was invisible. I tried, really tried, to keep it together. I gave my mom one last chance. "Did you get Noah anything?" I asked, voice low. Not angry yet. Just sad. Desperate, maybe. She waved her hand like I was being dramatic. "We figured we'd do his next time. It's just a birthday. He's a boy. He won't remember this stuff." I felt something crack. Something deep. I looked down at Noah again, and the smile he'd had that morning, the one that made my whole week, was gone. Just gone. Replaced by that hollow look kids get when they're trying not to cry in public. And that was it. That was the moment something inside me shifted. But I didn't yell. Not yet. Instead, I reached for the cake in Emma's hands and said, "We won't be staying." My mom blinked. "Zane, don't be like that. You're overreacting." Overreacting. I didn't say anything. Just looked around one last time. Took in the sight of my sister laughing with her kids, my dad sitting quietly in the corner like always, the presents, the streamers, the total absence of anything for my son. And then I turned and walked out. Cake in one hand. My son's in the other. I didn't say goodbye. But this was just the beginning. We didn't talk much in the car. Emma sat in the passenger seat, holding the cake on her lap like it might explode. Noah stared out the window, his reflection in the glass more expressive than his face. He didn't ask why we left. He didn't say anything about the presents. He just looked out at the streetlights flickering past like they were more interesting than any of us. Ellie, sweet oblivious Ellie, kicked her little legs in the back seat, humming to herself. She didn't get what had just happened. I almost envied her. Almost. We ended up back home before noon. The dinosaur balloons I'd ordered were still tied to the banister. The banner Emma and I hung that morning still said, "Happy 7th, Noah," in giant bubble letters. The table was set with matching plates and napkins, little plastic figurines lined up along the edge like parade watchers. The goodie bags were untouched in the corner. I felt like I had to say something. Like I owed Noah an explanation even if I didn't understand it myself. "I'm sorry, buddy," I said as we walked in. "I know that wasn't what we planned." He just nodded, setting his toy cars down on the floor. "It's okay," he mumbled. "Maybe they just forgot." Emma crouched beside him. "Hey, listen to me." Her voice was soft but firm, the way it gets when she's about to say something important. "They didn't forget. They chose not to. And that's not okay." He looked up at her. "But they love me, right?" That question wrecked me. We tried to salvage the day. I called up 2 of Noah's school friends. Thankfully, their parents were free, and they came over with cupcakes and Nerf guns. We lit the candles on the cake, sang "Happy Birthday," and even played a few rounds of Pin the Tail on the T-Rex. For a while, it worked. His smile crept back slowly, cautiously, like it didn't quite trust the air around it. But that night, after we tucked him in, Emma came into the living room and closed the door behind her. "We're done with them," she said. I didn't argue. Still, a small part of me hoped it was a misunderstanding. Maybe next time would be different. Maybe this was just some bizarre miscommunication. I told myself that. Lied to myself, really. But then the text started. Maddie messaged me the next day. "Maddie, hey, what was that yesterday? Mom's really upset." Me, "You hijacked my son's birthday." Maddie, "No one hijacked anything. We just thought it'd be easier. Don't make a scene. It's not that deep." It wasn't just that deep, it was the depth. It was the final proof that everything we'd been feeling for years wasn't just in our heads. It was real, documented, gaslit, and glossed over. But Mom took it further. She called me the next night. Zane, I need to talk to you. Now's not a good time, I said. It'll only take a minute. I just think you overreacted. Maddie's been going through a lot. She always is, isn't she? And Noah? I asked. What's he going through, Mom? A pause. He's a child. He'll bounce back. He's not going to remember one birthday. Funny, I said, because I do. I still remember my 8th birthday. When you canceled the party because Maddie had the flu and you never rescheduled it. You said the same thing back then. You'll bounce back. She went quiet again. Zane, don't hold grudges. It's not healthy. I hung up. Over the next few weeks, Emma and I tried to go about our lives. We stayed busy. Work, school runs, dinners, life. But the distance from my parents started to ache like a dull bruise I kept bumping into. And then came the real blow. Noah had his school's fall showcase, some kind of art and science fair hybrid where the kids showed off projects they'd spent weeks on. He made a papier-mâché volcano, and I'm not just saying this because I'm his dad. It was epic. The thing smoked. He worked on it every night with Emma. He even made a little flag with his name and dinosaur doodles to stick in the lava like a conqueror. Each kid was allowed to invite up to 4 guests. He picked Emma, me, and his grandparents. When I saw their names on the form, my stomach dropped. Are you sure you want to invite them? I asked. He nodded. They'll come this time. I want to show them. I didn't have the heart to say no. So we sent the invite. Emma even followed up with a text. Emma, hey, Noah's showcase is this Friday at 5 p.m. He's really proud of his project. Would mean a lot if you came. Mom, we'll see. We'll see. That's what she said when I asked if she'd come to my college graduation. She didn't come to that, either. Still, Noah was hopeful. He wore his little button-down shirt and fixed his hair just right. When we got there, he kept looking at the doors, scanning for familiar faces. I stood behind him, pretending not to notice every time his smile slipped a little more. They didn't come. They didn't even text. That night, Noah didn't eat dinner. He just picked at his mac and cheese and asked to go to bed early. When I tucked him in, he said, maybe they forgot. No, I said, kneeling beside him. They didn't forget. They chose not to come. And that's not your fault. His eyes shimmered. Do they not like me? That sentence. That one tiny, gut-wrenching sentence shattered whatever illusions I had left about my parents. I sat there, holding his hand, wondering how I ever let it get to this point. How many times had I excused their behavior? How many birthdays, holidays, visits had I let slide because I didn't want to rock the boat? Emma didn't say, I told you so. She just sat next to me on the couch after he fell asleep and handed me a glass of wine. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. A few days later, the real betrayal hit. Emma got a call from her friend Lindsay, another mom from school, someone who floats between social circles and always seems to know everything. Hey, you guys okay? She asked. Yeah? What? I just heard something weird. Maddie's throwing a huge party next weekend. For her daughter. At your in-laws' place. Emma blinked. Wait again. Yep. Bounce house, cotton candy machine, clown show, the works. Everyone's invited. Well, not everyone. Your name's not on the list. Emma thanked her and hung up. Then she turned to me. They're doing it again, she said. I stared at her. You mean another party? After the stunt they pulled on Noah's birthday? She nodded. And they didn't invite us. I didn't even know what to say anymore. It was like the universe had doubled down just to see how much we'd take. Out of morbid curiosity, I checked Facebook. Sure enough, there it was, photos from the backyard, our old backyard. Maddie's daughter in a sparkly dress, gifts piled high, my mom smiling in every frame, holding cotton candy like it was a torch of maternal pride. My dad even wore a #OneGrandpa shirt. The same man who hadn't said a word to Noah on his birthday. That was it. That was the breaking point. Not just because they threw another party. Not just because they excluded us. But because they made it loud. Public. Intentional. They wanted everyone to see who they showed up for. And who they didn't. I closed the laptop and sat there, staring at the wall. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. Not really. From clarity. Because for the first time in my life, I saw it all clearly. Every quiet slight. Every unspoken dismissal. Every time I'd been told to let it go, while Maddie got the world handed to her in pink wrapping paper and glitter bows. Emma sat next to me. So what now? I looked at her. My voice was calm when I said it. We're done pretending. She nodded. Good. But I wasn't done yet. Because they didn't just hurt me. They hurt my son. and I was going to make sure they never forgot it. Not ever. I didn't call them right away. For the first time in my life, I let the silence stretch. Not out of spite, out of self-preservation. See, when you grow up in a house where love feels conditional, where affection is measured by your ability to stay quiet, stay useful, stay low maintenance, you don't learn how to protect yourself. You learn how to perform. You learn how to shrink to fit the mold. You learn how to smile through disappointment so the room stays calm. But eventually, something cracks. And when it does, the silence isn't a punishment. It's a boundary. That week after Maddie's second birthday blowout, I felt hollow, like someone had scooped something out of my chest and left me walking around with a hole no one could see. I stopped opening texts. I didn't answer calls. I muted the group chat my mom used to send memes and passive-aggressive reminders about family dinners. Instead, I threw myself into work. I'm a freelance web designer, not glamorous, not always stable, but I'd built a decent client list over the years. The kind of job where no one cares what your mom thinks of you as long as you meet deadlines and don't crash the server. At night, I'd sit with Noah while he colored. He didn't talk about grandma anymore, or the party, or the volcano, but every once in a while, I'd catch him glancing toward the front door, like he was expecting someone to show up and explain everything. Like maybe the silence would eventually come with an apology. It didn't. Not from them. But something strange happened in that silence. Something subtle. Something good. We started talking more, Emma and me, I mean. Real talks. Not just about school lunches or bills or who was on daycare pickup that week. Deeper stuff. About boundaries. About family. About what kind of parents we wanted to be. One night, I told her about something I hadn't thought about in years. When I was 13, I said, Mom forgot to pick me up from soccer practice. It was raining. Everyone else left, and I waited outside for almost 2 hours. Emma frowned. Didn't you call her? I didn't have a phone back then, and the coach left before I could ask to use his. She finally pulled up like it was nothing. Said Maddie needed help with a school project. Emma reached for my hand. You never told me that. Because back then, it didn't feel unusual. It just felt normal. And that was the hardest part. Realizing how much of my childhood I'd normalized as just the way things are. Realizing I had spent decades trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. The fall wasn't dramatic. No fights. No screaming matches. Just distance. Heavy, invisible distance. Until Maddie sent the message. Maddie, so you're just gonna ghost the whole family now. That was her opening line. No hi. No checking in. Just accusation. Me. Not ghosting. Just protecting my kid. Maddie, from what? He's a child, not a victim of war. She always did have a flair for minimizing things. Me, he's a child. That's exactly why I'm protecting him. Maddie, you're being dramatic. And selfish. Mom says you're breaking her heart. Me, Mom broke his first. I stared at the screen for a while after that. Maddie never replied. She didn't have to. She wasn't the point anymore. By now, I had started journaling again. Just for myself. Stuff I hadn't unpacked in years started to surface. Childhood memories I'd buried. Unfair moments I'd brushed off. At first it felt like self-pity. But over time, it started feeling more like healing. One night, Emma peeked over my shoulder. That's really good, she said. I laughed. It's not for anyone. Maybe it should be. And that planted a seed. A few days later, I took one of those entries and reworked it into a blog post. Nothing fancy, just a Medium account. A simple post titled, When Grandparents Aren't Grand. I didn't name names. I just told the story. My story. By the end of the week, it had 5,000 views. By the end of the month, 50,000. Messages started rolling in from strangers, parents, adult children, even therapists, thanking me for saying something out loud they hadn't been able to. You helped me realize it wasn't just me. I thought I was being too sensitive. I haven't spoken to my mother in 3 years. I still feel guilty. Your post made me feel human. That was the beginning of something I never saw coming. A small publisher reached out a few weeks later. Said they liked my voice. Asked if I'd consider writing a collection of essays about fatherhood and family dynamics. I said I'd think about it. But the truth? I'd already started. Emma encouraged me every step of the way. She helped me organize the essays, gave feedback, cheered me on when I doubted myself. I worked early mornings and late nights, sometimes during lunch breaks, sometimes while the kids were at school. For the first time in years, I felt like I was building something that mattered, not just to me, but to people like me. People who grew up being told, "You're overreacting," when their hearts were breaking. People who had to become parents just to realize how badly they were parented. In the middle of all this, Noah started changing too. He joined a kids' art club at the community center, started bringing home little clay sculptures and watercolors. One day, he painted a picture of a volcano, red and orange swirls exploding from a paper mountain, with a little flag that said, "I did it anyway." I hung it on the fridge. One Saturday, he asked if we could bake cookies. "Sure," I said. "What kind?" "Not for us," he said. "For the neighbors." That's when I realized he wasn't just healing. He was thriving. We were. By the time the new school year rolled around, he'd been selected as class ambassador. Ellie started preschool and immediately became queen of the snack table. Emma took a chance on a side business she'd been dreaming about, an Etsy shop selling handmade kids' party supplies. Balloons, banners, themed kits. She called it Bright Spots, because that's what we were learning to look for and create. We hosted Thanksgiving that year, our first time doing it without my parents. It was small, just us, the kids, Emma's sister, and a couple of close friends. But the food was warm, the music was loud, and the laughter was real. Noah helped make the mashed potatoes and announced to the table that he was officially a chef now. At one point during dessert, Emma leaned over and whispered, "Look at us." I looked, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like something was missing. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, a letter. From my mom. It was written on that thick, floral stationery she only used for condolences or church thank you notes. It was short, 3 paragraphs. No apology, no accountability, just a vague acknowledgement that feelings were hurt and that families shouldn't let misunderstandings come between them. She ended it with, "We'd love to see the kids before Christmas. Let's put the past behind us." I read it twice. Then I folded it up and slid it into the drawer beside my desk. I didn't respond, because it wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a pattern, a legacy of silence and favoritism and weaponized guilt. And until that was acknowledged, I wasn't opening the door again. The truth is, hitting rock bottom wasn't the fall I thought it would be. It was a turning point. I lost something when I walked out of my parents' house that day with the cake in my hands. But I gained more. Clarity, strength, purpose. And my son? He gained a father who finally learned how to stand up, not just for him, but for himself. And soon, they'd learn just how far I was willing to go to make sure this never happened again. Because silence was no longer my weapon. But truth was about to be. And I had one final move left to make. When you grow up in a family like mine, you're taught not to call it revenge. You're taught to call it forgiveness. You're taught to be the bigger person, to not air dirty laundry, to let things go for the sake of peace. But here's what they never tell you. Forgiveness without accountability isn't noble. It's erasure. It's how cycles continue. It's how people like my mother get to smile at church, wave at neighbors, and pretend they're saints, while the people they hurt clean up the mess in private. And I was done cleaning. So yeah, you can call it revenge if you want. I call it setting the record straight. And it all started with that letter. The one Mom sent after Thanksgiving. I kept it. Not because it meant anything to me emotionally. It didn't. But because it was proof. Proof that she knew something was broken and that she wanted to pretend it wasn't. She never used the words, "I'm sorry." She never mentioned Noah. She never acknowledged the birthday, the art show, the party we weren't invited to. It was a letter crafted not to heal, but to protect her image. To say, "Look, I tried," if anyone ever asked. And that's when I realized something important. My mother cared deeply about appearances. More than anything else. She could dismiss my hurt in private. But the idea that other people might see her in a negative light, that was her Achilles heel. And suddenly, all the pieces started falling into place. Every decision she'd ever made, who got praised, who got punished, who got invited, who didn't, it was all curated. Controlled. Maddie got the spotlight because Maddie played the part. I didn't. I was too independent, too questioning, too inconvenient. So she sidelined me. Kept me close enough to call on when she needed a man to move furniture or fix a printer, but far enough to discard when I asked uncomfortable questions. And now that I was gone, truly gone, she couldn't control the narrative anymore. So I decided to write my own. You remember that book I mentioned? The essay collection? I finished it. All 12 chapters. Each one focused on a different theme. Fatherhood, boundaries, generational trauma, favoritism, conditional love, silent sons. I wrote the truth, but I changed names and some details. I wasn't trying to smear anyone. I was trying to free myself. But I didn't pull punches, either. Because what's the point of surviving something if you have to keep pretending it didn't happen? The publisher loved it. They offered me a modest advance, enough to feel like a win, not enough to change our lives. But I didn't care about the money. I cared about the message. Emma cried when she held the first printed copy in her hands. "You did this," she said. "You turned something awful into something real." And that's when I got the idea. The setup didn't require lies, or tricks, or drama, just truth, amplified. It started with a simple email to the school board. Nothing dramatic, just a recommendation that the district include more mental health resources for children dealing with estranged or toxic family dynamics. I attached one of my essays. Just one. A week later, they invited me to speak at a local parent engagement night. I almost said no, but then I remembered the look on Noah's face when he whispered, "Do they not like me?" So I said yes. The night of the event, I stood in a multi-purpose room filled with PTA moms, tired dads, and teachers with clipboards. I told my story. I didn't name names, but I told the truth. Afterward, people lined up to thank me. One woman said her daughter hadn't spoken to her parents in a decade because of how they treated her son. A man admitted he still flinched when his father texted. A teacher asked if she could share my essay with her staff. It was like pulling a thread and watching a whole curtain come down. Suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. None of us were. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about me. It was about every kid who felt invisible in their own family. Every parent trying to undo the damage they didn't have words for. Every adult still haunted by a birthday party they never got, or an apology that never came. So I went bigger. I created a website, uploaded a few essays, added resources, started a small newsletter. Emma helped with design. Noah drew the header logo, a cartoon volcano with a smiley face and a flag that said, "I did it anyway." It went viral within a month. Articles popped up on parenting blogs. Podcasts asked me to come on. I told my story over and over again, not for sympathy, but for solidarity. And that's when they started noticing. First came the email from Maddie. No subject line, just 2 sentences. "Maddie, wow. You really had to make yourself the victim, huh? Hope it was worth it." I didn't respond. Then Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. "Zane, I saw what you're doing. I don't appreciate being painted as some kind of monster. I have always done what I thought was best. You might not agree, but that doesn't give you the right to slander me in public." That was her word, slander. Even now, it was about her image. So I posted a new essay. Titled it, "When the People Who Hurt You Say They're the Victims." I didn't name her. I didn't have to. People knew. But I still wasn't done. Because the next opportunity was too perfect to ignore. Our town does a yearly Voices of the Valley series. Local authors get to do a public reading at the community center, usually paired with a Q&A. It's a cozy, small event. A couple dozen attendees. Coffee and cookies. The kind of thing Mom lived for. And guess who was on the planning committee? Her church friend, Carol. The one who always asked, "How's your lovely son?" The quiet one. Not Maddie, the other one. I sent in my name. Carol replied within an hour. "We'd love to have you." The reading was scheduled for mid-February, right after Maddie's daughter's birthday. Poetic, right? I chose 3 essays to read. One of them was called "The Day My Son Stopped Believing in Grandparents." That one hit a nerve. The room was packed. Some familiar faces. Some not. Emma sat in the front row. Noah was next to her, holding Ellie's hand and sipping hot chocolate. Halfway through my reading, I saw them. My parents. Standing in the back, near the exit. My mom had that tight smile she wore at funerals. My dad looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Maddie wasn't there. I didn't stop. Didn't flinch. When it was over, people clapped. A few stood. Someone even whistled. And then, slowly, my mother approached. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice brittle. I looked at her, and then at Noah, and then back at her. "No," I said. "Not yet." And I turned away. Because the setup wasn't about confrontation. It was about clarity. About building something so strong that I never had to beg for love again. And about teaching my son that real family doesn't ignore your birthday. Real family doesn't show up when it's convenient and vanish when it counts. Real family sees you, celebrates you, shows up, every time. And now the stage was set. Because I had one more move to make. Something final. Something unforgettable. And they'd never see it coming. They didn't show up at the next reading. I wasn't surprised. After the Voices of the Valley event, the local paper ran a piece on me. A small write-up, nothing sensational. Just a headline that read, "Local dad's essays on family and forgiveness strike a chord." But it was enough. Enough for my mother's church friends to start whispering. Enough for Maddie's coworkers to start Googling. Enough for people to start seeing the cracks. And that was the beginning of the end. Not for me. For them. You see, revenge, real revenge, isn't about screaming or breaking things or burning bridges with fireworks. It's not loud. It's not messy. It's quiet. Controlled. Surgical. It's letting someone ruin their own reputation while you rise, gracefully, unbothered, unstoppable. And that's exactly what happened. Let me walk you through it. After my book started gaining traction, I got an invitation to speak at a regional parenting conference. It wasn't huge, just a few hundred attendees, mostly educators, counselors, and young parents. But it was the kind of place where reputations were built. And more importantly, it was being hosted in my hometown. The one where my mother chaired the charity board, where Maddie was a substitute teacher at a private preschool, where our last names still carried weight in all the right social circles. So when the promotional flyer went out, with my face on it, and the title of my talk, Breaking the Cycle, How to Parent Without Repeating the Pain, well, let's just say it didn't go unnoticed. 2 days later, I got a message from my dad. Just a single line. "Is this really necessary?" I didn't respond. Instead, I walked into Noah's room, sat beside him on the floor where he was drawing, and said, "I'm going to talk to a bunch of parents. About you. About what it means to protect your kid." He looked up. "Are you going to tell them about Grandma?" I paused. "Yes, but not just her. I'm going to tell them about how strong you are. About how proud I am to be your dad." He smiled and went back to drawing. That smile? That was all the permission I needed. At the conference, I didn't hold back. I told the full story. Noah's 7th birthday, the party that wasn't for him, the forgotten art show, the silence, the letter, the manipulation, the gaslighting. I didn't use names, but I didn't have to. By the time I finished, the room was still. And then the applause came. Slow, rising, real. And later, during the Q&A, a woman in the back raised her hand and said, "What would you say to people who think you're airing dirty laundry?" I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "I'd say I'm not airing dirty laundry. I'm airing out the house before it kills someone." That clip went viral. It was shared on TikTok, Instagram, even Reddit, ironically. The comments poured in. "This is the kind of dad I want to be. I feel seen for the first time." My mom said the same thing to me. "You're overreacting." Screw that. And with that attention came opportunity. A bigger publisher offered to re-release my book under a national imprint. A podcast producer reached out about adapting the essays into a limited series. A mental health nonprofit offered me a consulting gig. And every time someone asked me why I started writing, I told them the truth. My son smiled on his birthday. And then he stopped. And I promised myself I'd never let that happen again. But here's where the real revenge came in. Remember Emma's Etsy shop? Bright spots. Well, all that attention meant orders started pouring in. Party kits, custom banners, balloons. Her dinosaur-themed birthday set for boys aged 5 to 8. It became the #1 seller. We reinvested the profits, turned it into a proper business, rented a small warehouse, hired help. By spring, she was making more in 1 month than Maddie had ever made in a year. Meanwhile, Maddie? She was struggling. Turns out, being the favorite only works when your image is intact, when your reputation is squeaky clean. But after the book came out, things changed. Parents at her preschool started asking questions. About the stories. About her role. She didn't get fired. But she did get quietly pushed out of the spotlight. No more Christmas pageant MC gigs. No more Parent of the Month nominations. Just awkward silences in the break room and polite nods at pickup time. And my mom? She tried to spin it. Tried to host a charity gala that spring, an event she used to run annually. Sent out glossy invites. Booked the country club. Called in favors. Except this time, something was different. Half the guests RSVP'd no. A few even sent copies of my book with highlighted passages. One donor wrote, "We don't support organizations led by people who silence their own children." She called me again that night. I picked up this time. "Zane," she said, "I don't understand. Why are you doing this to us?" I was calm. "I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing something for me. For my son. You're tearing this family apart. No, I said. You did that years ago. I'm just refusing to tape it back together with silence. She started crying. Real tears, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know how to fix this, she said. You don't, I replied. You listen. You sit with the truth. And you stop pretending I'm the problem. She hung up. That was the last time we spoke. No legal drama. No public fights. Just silence. But this time it was mine. And here's the fallout. Noah turned 8 last month. We threw the biggest party our backyard could hold. 40 kids, a magician, 2 bounce houses, and enough snacks to feed a minor army. But the best part? When it was time to blow out the candles, he looked around at all his friends, all the laughter, all the decorations with his name on them, and said, "This is my party. I love it." I kissed the top of his head. Then I stepped back and watched him dance in the sun with chocolate on his face and frosting on his shirt. And in that moment, I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel angry. I just felt free. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. It's creation. It's building the life they said you didn't deserve. It's giving your child the love you never got. It's turning your pain into a platform, your scars into a message, and your silence into a roar. I never went back to that house. Never sent another letter. Never showed up to another dinner. Never begged to be seen. Because now, I see myself. And that's enough. That's everything. They made my son feel invisible. So I made sure the world would never forget him.